Happy 216. Hope everybody's having a good morning so far. So excited that the Stephen Karcher translation of the Guanyin poems has arrived already. Yesterday, it gave greater dimension to our divinations because the Karcher translation includes all those contextual clues that and traditional meanings that the other two books don't have. And I mentioned in the beginning of the practice that we were having the translation from Manho Kwok and from Dr. Chris Wen-Cha Lee, and that Manho Kwok's translation was very literal, and Chris Wen-Cha Lee's translation is a little bit less literal. Stephen Karcher's translation is like a cultural translation. It's for people who maybe didn't grow up with all the cultural context that are featured in these poems. And so the Stephen Karcher translation for us in the West represents a kind of an eye-opening to an entire cultural paradigm that, you know, for many of us hasn't been the way we were brought up. And so it gives us further dimensions of understanding and awareness about these poems and their true meaning, that they have a deeper meaning than just what's translated in the line by line. So I hope you've been enjoying the poems as they've gone along, but I feel like yesterday we got the high octane fuel for our divinations with this book. It's interesting. Over the years, I've learned that if one is studying something that is not in, a language that one was raised with or a culture that one was raised with, sometimes finding somebody who shares your own culture but has spent significant time embedded in the culture or the language that you're studying. Obviously, this can't apply for ancient cultures because we can't bend time like that yet. But, for anybody who's looking to create that kind of connection, sometimes it's even a helpful step to go find a reliable translator or cultural translator who shares some aspects of one's own culture, then go into the primary source material, because the primary source material will presume of you a knowledge that you may or may not have. So, people have said to me, well, why would you study with someone who's white when you're studying Buddhism? And first of all, Buddhism is not of any one particular ethnic background, but two, because my white Western Buddhist teachers have been able to show me, oh, okay, look, you're interpreting this way because of how your mind works, but in the cultural canon, it would be interpreted this way, and that's why that makes more, doesn't make as much sense, or that's why that makes more sense. And it really can help you see where the gaps are in your own understanding and awareness of the source material and its cultural paradigm. So a little bit on why I find Stephen Karcher's work across the board in terms of Taoism, divination, the works of Guanyin, but he's also done other translation work, and I find it very valuable. So today, our form of Guanyin that we're working with is the Guanyin of the Rock Cave. So, and she's wearing beautiful golden bracelets sitting in a cave. So let me make sure everyone gets to see her. How do we get so there's no glare? So, oh, there we go. Okay, good. And then same over here. Okay. So let me read this to you. The key word of Guanyin of the Rock Cave is detoxification. Guanyin sits at the entrance to a rock cave in the royal ease pose, and that's with, one leg up, one leg hanging down, arm casually draped over the knee. She's got her arm on a rock. Poisonous animals, as well as the energies of diseases, gather at this spot in the rock cave, but she eliminates them, using the mysterious powers she possesses to protect sentient beings. As modern towns and cities have grown, the threat of poisonous animals has been reduced in many countries, as they've been deprived of their habitats. But now we're exposed to numerous other toxic substances, exhaust fumes, accidents at chemical and nuclear power plants, and forest fires and things like that. As we humans carry harmful toxins inside us as well, on both physical and mental levels. Chinese medicine describes the 5 hollow or cave-like organs where toxins can accumulate. Buddhism describes the 3 mental poisons that cause disease and act as obstacles on the path toward enlightenment: greed, hatred, and ignorance. And from the Lotus Sutra, if lizards, snakes, vipers, scorpions threaten you with poison breath that sears like flame, think on the power of that perceiver of sounds, and hearing your voice, they will flee of their own accord. Invoke Guanyin of the rock cave when you want to clear physical, mental, and emotional secret caves that you might have within from poisons or unresolved feelings. Tune in to her when you want to detoxify or work on dissolving negative or stressful emotions and thoughts. What a beautiful divination. I think that a whole lot of us will benefit from a clearing like that. It might seem like, we're always doing purifications, but every day there's new accumulation of psychic static, of karma, of inertia, of the wages of physical illness. Every single day we experience kind of fresh pollution. So we do have to purify and detoxify. And just yesterday, a little sister was doing a clearing for me at my store. She came and she volunteers at my store, Gabby. And she, Dana, and Demi all volunteer there with me, which is so kind of them. And Gabby was like, I really want to do like a cleanse. And so she did. She went all around my store and she came and she did a cleanse on me and she did a cleanse on everything. We all need it. Even if you're really a pro at cleansing, let yourself be cleansed or get someone else to maybe help you with a cleanse, because it's sort of nice when you're not going it alone. Okay, so let's see what today's divination is. Put off the table. How do I get this thing to not go up? I need a different board. I need my sticks, that's why. Okay, number 54. Pricking the bubble. Illusion, a fantasy. You awake. You realize none of it's true. But it's true that good things are heard in your conscience. What is there in marriage and in superficial health? Look beyond it, or you'll stay disheartened and bitter. Let's see what the Chris Wen Chao Li translation says, number 54. So the outlook is a warning. You dreamt that you discovered buried loot. Then you wake up with an emptiness that cries to be filled. If looking for love or a cure to your ills, better to try an alternative route. Like a rod dipped into water whose size and shape is partly distorted, fantasy needs to be separated from reality. You have a dream of finding buried treasure, yet in the end, it is nothing more than a dream. This can be a metaphor for efforts spent in vain. All right, and now let's find out what Stephen Karcher has to say. Shifting reflections. Trees and bushes reflected in the running water, their image shifts and changes, creating confusion in the mind. Everything grows, matures, and ripens, vigorous. Unfold and complete plans and watch them bear fruit. Care for children. You are confused by a mad whirl of activity. Stop. Take a breath. Find your center and let things ripen on their own. And then what can and cannot happen. Your household and family are at odds. Take measures to overcome confusion. You will encounter many business obstacles before you can count on a profit, but creative energy is at your service. Your plans for a significant relationship may not succeed. If you're expecting a child, be careful and make sure you're under a doctor's care. Do not go to court on any account. Your case would simply be thrown out. And if you're under a doctor's care, ask yourself if he or she is really the right one for you. So it's seeming like there's a distortion and one of the things that I've learned over time is that the seeming distortions in the shimmering, rippling landscape of appearances are usually a distortion in the eye of the beholder, not a distortion in the landscape. When we're looking around at the world around us, at all of the circumstances of our lives, at our families and friends, it's really easy to start finding fault out there. You know, all these things, this is the problem, that's the problem, he's the problem, she's the problem. All of those problems out there are actually part of your view. It doesn't mean that there aren't problems that will need to be resolved. Even this says, like, go to a doctor, you know, make sure that you have the right one. You know, creative energy is with you, even if you do have business obstacles. The, you know, divination acknowledges that those things that we are experiencing have very real effects. But our happiness and our feeling like we can do something about it does not come from the circumstances. It comes from ourselves and our own view. So if you can correct your view, you have a better luck, you have better potential at curing yourself. If you can adjust your worldview, you have an easier time of being able to see the path to solutions to problems. So today, let's really work on our distortions. Where is it that we are holding a distorted view? Where might we be the ones who are limiting ourselves or cutting ourselves off by feeding into a delusion rather than reality? And for example, a lot of us I know are walking around really worried about social justice and the government and how will things get resolved and how will inequities be addressed. But so far, we haven't seen practical action really significantly on the part of our government to fix the massive inequities in our society. And so one of our distortions might be that we think we could just leave that to the government and that eventually they'll come around, or that we could just, you know, think of that there's a problem with an impasse and no solution, that the government isn't acting, and so this problem exists, so what can I do? I can't do anything. But I would challenge each of us today to look beyond that distorted view and to go to the root of our dissatisfaction, which is something that we think should be happening isn't happening. And then we should put that energy toward a step to make that thing happen. So whether that's, you know, doing some kind of a letter writing or fundraising or volunteering or standing up for someone, whatever it is, you have the right to and the capacity to create at least one step that will give you satisfaction and will give you a sense that something is happening, instead of the distortion of thinking someone outside of you is responsible for fixing this. Each of us has to be completely committed to fixing this if it's to be fixed. And each of us needs to be completely committed to finding the path to our own happiness. And our own happiness is not the result of anyone else doing it for us. Our happiness is the result of being in community and collaboration with others and sharing values and working toward them and then seeing the fruits of our labors. That's where our satisfaction comes from. So today, really look for where is it that a distortion has taken root in your mind and weed it out, and try instead to fill that space with some small action, a practical action that you can take that would put you into the driver's seat once again. And that's our short bit for today. So thank you for tuning in for that. And if you're here to stay for Guan Yin practice, it starts now with 3 prostrations before our shrine. And let's take refuge. Namo Guru Be. I take refuge in the inner teacher. Namo Buddhaye. I take refuge in the great mother of compassion. Namo Dharmaye. I take refuge in the wisdom of the ages. Namo Sanghaye. I take refuge in the community of practitioners. And let's set our intention, a person, place, situation, or circumstance that will benefit from today's practice. And today we're holding Mona, who's moving. It's a big deal, moving into her new house, and has had just such a road to get to this step. And it's so exciting. May it all go smoothly for her today. And let's recite the 4 immeasurables. May I be a source of loving kindness in this world and all worlds, bringing a generous heart to all my thoughts and doings. May I be a vehicle of compassion in this world and all worlds, ever mindful and aware of the tremendous suffering of others. May I be a brimming vessel of joy in this world and all worlds, delighting in the happiness of others as their suffering is alleviated. May I be a balance point of equanimity in this world and all worlds, seeing all as equals and all as deserving of goodness. I light this candle as a symbol of the enlightening Dharma way. May it shine brightly for the benefit of all beings. I light this incense as an offering for Guan Shi Yin, she who hears the cries of the world, mother of all. Come back here. Om Ahum. 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 Reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and virtual. I confess all my destructive actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the meditation of all holy and ordinary beings. Please, Guan Yin, remain until the end of samsaric existence, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of others to the great enlightenment. 108 recitations of Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa, and envision Guan Yin going into all of the cave-like organs in your body. Maybe it didn't list them in the book, but maybe it's like the stomach, the kidney, the liver, the intestines, anywhere that's got a hollow chamber, the heart, and envision her sweeping out anything that doesn't belong there. Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa, 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 Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa. Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa, 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 Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa. Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa, 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 Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa. Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa, 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 Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa. Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa, Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa, Namo Guan Shi Yin Pu Sa, 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 Namo Guan Shi Yin Pu Sa. in her lifetime, Yeshet Tsogyal went through a lot. She really endured tremendous hardship. Her family put her out in the middle of the road to see who would come along and take her because she refused to get married. She was beaten, she was raped, she went through so much. And yet, she found her way always back to the view that would allow her to still try to do benefit for the world. And this is such an important aspect of, why we follow the Dharma path in the Mount Shasta Goddess Temple just as our basis, because so far it's the only path I've found that actually gives us proper perspective on hardship. And that is to say that hardship exists, that other people have gone through it, that the cause of hardship is rooted in the three poisons, and that there is a way to get out of it. So, keeping that in mind, listen to these words of Yeshet Tsogyal. Wherever there is space, 5 elements pervade. Wherever the 5 elements, the homes of living beings. Wherever living beings, karma and defilements. Wherever is defilement, my compassion also. Wherever is the need of beings, there I am to help them. To the hungry I was heaps of food and all good things, and thus I brought them joy. To the cold and freezing I was fire and sun warmth, thus their joy. To the poor and needy I was wealth and riches, thus their joy. To the naked I was every kind of raiment, thus their joy. To the childless I was sons and daughters, thus their joy. To those who sought a lover, I was a loving and attractive consort, and thus their joy. To those who wanted magic powers, I gave prowess in the 8 great cities, and thus I brought them joy. To the sick I was their remedy, and thus their joy. To the anguished I was all their mind desired, and thus I was their joy. To those hard pressed by the punishments of despots, I was the loving friend to lead them to the land of peace, and I was thus their joy. To those in fear of wild beasts, I was a haven, thus their joy. To those who fell into the depths, I was their drawing out, and thus their joy. To those tormented in the fires, I was a quenching stream, and thus their joy. To those in prey to any of the elements, I was their medicine, and thus their joy. For those who could not see, I was their eyes and brought them joy. And for those who could not walk, I was feet, and thus their joy. I was a tongue for those who could not speak, and thus I brought them joy. To those in fear of death, I granted immortality, and thus I was their joy. I led the dying on the path of transference and brought them to joy. To those who wandered in the Bardo state, I was their spirit guide, bringing them to joy. I cooled the burning heat and warmed the cold of those lost in the realms of hell. Howsoever they were tortured, I changed myself to shield them, being thus their joy. To those who lingered in the land of hungry ghosts, I was their food and drink, and thus their joy. I was freedom from oppression and servitude for those caught in the wordless state of beasts, and thus I brought them joy. To those beings born in places of war, I protected them from strife and brought them joy. I was a truce from endless conflict for the demigods and was thus their joy. The jealous gods I guarded from their bitter fall, and I was thus their joy. I shielded all from everything that tortured them and was their every joy. Living in patriarchy, we're expected on a regular basis to believe in fallacies. We're expected to conform to them. We're expected to look the other way when we see abuses of power. We're expected to fall in line behind some leader or policy or ideology simply because it privileges the male state, the male estate. Freeing oneself from those restrictions is part of cleansing, part of removing, part of purifying those aspects of our hearts, our minds, and our beings that have clouded our judgment and kept us in subservience, kept us in states of oppression and suppression. Living one's life as a woman genuinely, freely, with full vestiture in one's own knowing is an antidote to that. Let's try today. 108 recitations. And it says here, oh, yay. Happy birthday, Jasai. It's Jasai's Priestess Jasai's birthday today. Happy birthday. All right, let's now call out to Guanyin with 108 recitations of Om Mani Padme Hum, inviting her to come and give cleansing, purifying, and healing to the poisons that are upon us all, our whole world. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 And let's give thanks for our teachers. May all of my blessed teachers enjoy long, happy, healthy, productive lives and great support for their good works. May all beings benefit from their wisdom. May they enjoy a swift and happy rebirth. And long life prayer for Lama Dechen Yeshe Wangmo. Om Sosti. Through the powerful blessings of the immortal Pema Jungye and his consort, may the three secret qualities of the Dakini of Supreme Bliss, Yeshe Wangmo, be utterly stable, and may the light of her activities shine on the lotus groves of the teachings and of beings, so that they blossom in radiant splendor. Let's dedicate the merit. May the merit of this practice and all of my activities be of endless benefit to all beings in all realms, beginningless and continuous. May all obstacles be overcome and suffering cease at the sound of liberation. May all beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all beings have happiness and its causes. May we carry the essence of Guanyin in our hearts. Namo Guanxin Pusa. And we close with a bow to Guanyin, bow to one another, and bow to the inner teacher. And wishing everyone a really good day, a day of dissipating delusion and feeling like we are able to take some kind of productive action that will give us a sense that, you know, we're participating in the solution rather than subject to the problems. Okay, be back tomorrow. Take care. Bye.